going on, y'all? So I want to pick up off the last video I made regarding Michael Jai White, Bruce Lee, and Kimbo Slice. And I want to dig deeper. So it's been a lot of videos I've seen. People like to talk about who is or who isn't a real fighter, things like that. And I'm pretty sure the basis of it, or the crux of this, is Michael Jai White. Because a lot of people still question his authenticity or legitimacy as, a martial artist. The common belief is that if a person never fought professionally, then anything they have done outside of that doesn't qualify them as a fighter. Which in essence means that they pretty much aren't fighters. I don't like that due to the fact that you kind of disrespect the martial arts community, because here's a fact of life. Here's a fact that some people probably would disagree with me on this. Those who know, however, will understand where I'm coming from. But if we being honest, just because you're a fighter, a professional MMA fighter, does not mean you're a martial artist. You can be a martial artist and a fighter. You can be a martial artist and not be a fighter, which, that makes sense for those who know. And you can also be a fighter and not be a martial artist. Those things aren't mutually exclusive. But you can't become a fighter and not learn a martial art. Every MMA fighter has to learn a martial art. You have to learn boxing, you have to learn kickboxing, taekwondo, karate, muay thai, jiu-jitsu, wrestling. You're learning some sort of martial art, or at least some form or aspect of self-defense. So when we want to question whether or not someone is a legit martial artist, you can't really dismiss them if they have the rankings and the black belt and the belts and even the trophies to go with it. And I'll say trophies because people tend to think that just because you participated in tournaments, that means that you're not legit. That actually is proof that you're legit. The highest form of legitimacy, if you want to call yourself a fighter, is to fight professionally. If you haven't fought professionally, that doesn't mean you're not a fighter. It just diminishes the view people may have of you as a fighter. Like Michael Jai White, people say that he's not legit, but those who train with him testified to how legit he actually is. John Jones, he recently sparred with Cyril Gane. He has, he's trained with Rashad Evans. He's trained with, what's his name? Most notably, I'll say, what the heck is that? What is his name? Michael Bisping. And Michael Jai White himself admitted, this might work against me, I don't care, but he said himself, Michael Jai White admitted that Michael Bisping treated him. Now, people will hear that and be like, well, see, that's just proof that Michael Jai White is a legit martial artist. No, it doesn't take away from his legitimacy. Someone who competes and learns to fight for a living is not the same as someone who has trained, not for a living, okay? Michael Jai White doesn't do martial arts, and he hasn't done martial arts to fight competitively like you see guys in the UFC. There are martial artists in the UFC, and not just the UFC, but MMA in general, like, for example, Stephen Thunderboy Thompson, like, for example, Lyoto Machida, and I would even say Anderson Silva. Throw him on the list. But it still doesn't diminish a martial artist's legitimacy, because, like, for example, if anyone wanted to dismiss me as illegitimate, if you want to say that I'm not legitimate, because I'll admit right now I don't have any belts. I have trained for years, but I've trained in multiple arts: Aikido, trained Muay Thai. I've done some jiu-jitsu and some boxing. I will tell you right from the get-go, and anyone that I've trained, I tell them also I don't have any belts. And I like to be honest with them, because while I am a certified instructor, I am not a, I guess, certified martial artist. Okay? My Aikido sensei, my Jiu-Jitsu sensei, I didn't train long enough with them to receive any belts from them. Okay? Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that I don't know how to teach people. Okay? A bulk of my following, of the subscribers on my channel, is due to the videos I post regarding the concepts of striking. I would like to believe, and I believe myself to be, a competent teacher. I've never had a client, regardless of who they were, male or female, say to me that I don't know what I'm doing. Okay, I've never trained someone for a great length of time and they can say to me that I don't know what I'm doing. I believe myself to be a thorough enough teacher that when I explain something to them, they understand what I'm getting at. And I don't believe that people like Michael Jai White, like a Scott Adkins, like and many other practitioners of martial arts, I don't consider them illegitimate just because they haven't fought professionally. I mean, outside of Steven Seagal, I don't know anyone who you would look at and say definitively that they are not a martial artist. Okay, even though Joe Rogan in that branch, Jean-Claude Van Damme I would throw in there also, but he actually participated in kickboxing matches. He has a record of, I think, 18-2 or 20-2. And the majority of his victories are legitimately by knockout. You can research that. But it's important that we don't have to. We don't create this benchmark where we say that if we don't see you fight professionally, or if we don't see, or we dismiss point fighting, because point fighting is a means by which you test your skills. It's not full contact like MMA is, like the UFC, like Bellator, like ONE FC is, and many other organizations, whether they're premier or not. But it's just a matter of not trying to take what some people have done and try to delegitimize their skills just because they didn't fight professionally. We can't do that, because we can't determine who is or who isn't legitimate based on our own, what's the word I'm looking for here? Based on our own personal criteria. Truth be told, you're actually a fighter if you've actively, and I got this from this brother that I seen on TikTok, his name is Roxy. You know, it's not spelled like the woman Roxy. I think it's R-O-G-Z-I. That's how you spell his name. Go look him up on TikTok. But if you have made the determination and acting on it to actively put yourself in a position where you get punched and kicked in the face against a live opponent, by definition, you are a fighter. Now, it doesn't matter what level you've done it at, whether it's amateur, amateur or a high elite professional or anything in between. If you have engaged in a fight with someone, if you have put yourself in a situation where you are actively fighting off someone, then you are a fighter. Especially if you put in the work, the time and the work and the training to prepare yourself and actively engage in said situation. And whether people want to admit it or not, point fighting counts. Because you get trophies and you get belts, trophies particular, for these types of events. They to this day, people still engage in karate and taekwondo tournaments. I actually am going to partake in a Muay Thai Development League in early August 2nd to be exact. This will be my first contact. It's an exhibition to my knowledge, But what they do is they grade you on your performance. That's the gist of it. You compete, they grade you on your performance, and you see where you need to get better at. So the only issue when it comes to winning and losing is whether or not you perform well enough. It's solely based on your performance. But one thing I don't want to do is drag this video out any longer. In essence, let's not, unless a person is proven to be a fraud, let's not dismiss someone because the criteria we've set out, that we've made for people to be considered a legitimate fighter, they don't meet. Because these people that you may want to say aren't legitimate fighters or aren't real fighters, if you were to even just spar with them, you would likely get dog walked by these people. And it's not a stretch of the imagination to say that. Because for anyone, even like Michael Jai White is almost 60 years old. And he's trains non-stop. So if anyone out there thinks that they can take Michael Jai White, I'm pretty sure, or even a Scott Adkins, or even a Tony Jaa, okay? If you think you can beat these guys, you shouldn't have a problem, you know, searching them out and sparring them, you know? But don't think for a second you can take these guys, especially if you don't put the work in yourself. This isn't, I'm not saying that last part to call anyone out. I'm just saying, don't think that just because you don't see any fight footage of people doing anything, that means they're not a legitimate fighter, that you can dismiss their legitimacy as a martial artist. You can't. It's not so much about them being a fighter, it's about them being an actual martial artist. Like, simply put, what they've learned, can they teach someone effectively, the same way they were taught, or for that matter, better than they were taught? If you can't prove that they can't do it, I ain't about to sit here and say shut the F up, but you might want to fall back on telling someone that they are or are legit. Because you can't question them when you yourself haven't done the work. You know, your criteria isn't what we got to go off of. It's really simple. Either they did the work and they're legit, and they can prove to you, and if there's testimony from others saying that they're legit, then whatever your argument is, it kind of doesn't matter. Like, if John Jones says that Michael Jai White is legit, then it don't matter what anyone else says. It's John Jones, the greatest MMA fighter of all time. Okay? And last I checked, I didn't hear him say Michael Jai White wasn't legit. So that's the video for today. Thank you guys for watching. And per the norm, train daily. I'll see y'all soon.